Today we are going to be discussing APA formatting. Specifically, we are going to talk about the 7th edition of APA formatting. And this is very new. It just came into effect October of 2019. So if you're a student, your teacher might still be familiar with the 6th edition of APA and not the 7th edition. Your teacher could also prefer a different edition as well. So make sure that you look at your course syllabus to find out what your teacher is asking for. But for this presentation itself, we're just focusing specifically on the newest 7th edition of APA. These are the general guidelines for APA. Your paper must be double-spaced. It must be 8.5 by 11, which is the normal size of typical printer paper. You must have 1-inch margins on all sides. You have to use a consistent font throughout the paper. And these are just the fonts that APA 7th edition allows. So you got 11-point Calibri, 11-point Arial, and so on. Most teachers are going to tell you that they just want you to stick with 12-point Times New Roman. So I would say, just to play it safe, just stick with Times New Roman 12-point font. Every APA paper should include a page header, which is known as the running head, at the top of every page. And I'll go over how to do that in your paper as well a little bit later. Your title page is going to have a different header than all of your other pages. You want to include the paper title and the page number in your headers. And you cannot exceed 50 characters in your headers, and that includes your spacing and punctuation. So if you have a very long title of your paper, you're going to want to narrow that down to make it a shorter title. And once again, I'm going to show you how to do all this in Microsoft Word a little bit later on in this presentation. Now we're going to talk about the sections of your paper. The first section is going to be your title page. The very first page should contain the running head, which is the title of your paper, the author's name, your institutional affiliation, course number and name, instructor name, and due date. Once again, for this specifically, some teachers might just want you to put the page title, your name, the course, and the date. They might not want all of this, but this over here is just an example of an APA paper. But once again, check your syllabus to see what kind of specifications your teacher would like. Now your running head should be at the top left of the page, while the page number is on the top right. So here's the page number up at the right. They were actually missing this running head with the title of paper up here, but I'm going to show you how to do that later on. The second page is going to be your abstract. If you're just doing a research paper and you're a student, you're probably never going to have to do this. But if you are writing a professional paper that you want to be peer-reviewed or submitted into a journal, you're probably going to have to write an abstract for your paper. And up here in all caps, this is the running head. So this is the correct way to do it. So the first line of your abstract is going to be the center in bold with the word abstract. And then the second line, you are going to start summarizing your research and the key points of your research as well. Now this summary should contain your research topic, your research questions, the participants, the methods, the results, data analysis, and conclusion. So you'll see this for a lot of peer-reviewed journals that have done studies. It has to be a single paragraph, double-spaced, and they don't like it to be longer than 250 words. Your abstract is very, very brief. But once again, you may never even have to write an abstract for a paper. The third section of your paper is going to be the start of your actual paper. So up here you can see we have the page number on the right and the running head right here on the left. And then this is just an example, but you're basically just going to start your paper right here on the first line. You're going to want to write an introductory paragraph with a thesis statement. And your thesis is a summary of what you are going to prove in your paper. After your introductory paragraph, you're going to start writing your middle paragraphs, and you can have as many of those as you want. Your teacher is probably going to assign you a page count or a word count, so you'd have to adjust based on that. And then finally, the last paragraph you have is your conclusion. In the very first sentence of your conclusion, you should be restating your thesis. The last page of your paper is going to be dedicated to your references. And over here on the right, this is what you want your reference page to look like. So once again, you have the page number in the top right corner, you have your running head in the top left corner, and then you have references in the center, and then all of your references listed, and this is very important, in alphabetical order. This should start on its own separate page at the end of your paper. Every citation that you cite within your paper has to be on this list, or else you can get penalized for plagiarism. So you really need to check and make sure that your in-text citations are all showing up here on your reference list. And the reference list needs to include hanging indents. For those of you who don't know what a hanging indent is, it's this indentation right here. You see how there's a space underneath each first line of each reference, and that just makes it easier to read for everyone. But this space right here for each line underneath the start of a reference, that is called a hanging indent. Now we're going to go over in-text citations. Immediately after you paraphrase a source, you need to cite that source in your paper. If you use a direct quotation, you will also need to add either a paragraph or a page number of that quote. So if you're reading a news article and you directly cite something from it, you directly take the words from that news article and put it in your paper, you're probably going to need to put like paragraph number 5, something like that. When you cite an author, you're going to want to use the following format: parentheses, author last name, comma, space, year of publication, and parentheses. So for example, in his book, The Lorax Tries to Reduce Environmental Destruction, we have a parentheses, Seuss, comma, and the year of publication, 1971, end parentheses. Now this 1971 is just the version of the book that I decided to use for this example. If you have a new copy of a book that you're citing, you want to make sure that you cite the correct edition. So he had a reprint probably in the early 2000s that I could have cited as well. And then I added another example that I took as a direct quotation from his book. And sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax was lifted away. And since this is a direct quotation, it's in quotation marks. We have the author last name, the year, and we also have the page number right here. And the reason this A is in these brackets here is because in the book, the A was lowercase, but since I'm beginning a sentence, I decided that I wanted to capitalize the letter A. So if you ever do that, you want to make sure that you put it in brackets, because this is showing what you've changed within the original quote. And if you're citing a news article with no page number, let's open this up and take a look so I can show you. So I decided to look at this news article and I pulled a quote directly from the last paragraph on here. So remember, if you find a grenade, call the police and then go to Taco Bell. And since I directly quoted it, but there's no page numbers in this news article, I had the author last name, the year, and the paragraph that this quote is coming from. And in this, it's coming from paragraph 5. Now these Instagram posts and these advertisements that are within the news article, those do not count as separate paragraphs. So we're going to count them 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally at the very end we're going to have paragraph 5. If you have more than one author, you're going to want to do the author last name, the and symbol, the second author last name, comma, and then the year of publication. So this is just the example I gave. More than 3 authors, you're going to put the first author's last name, and then you're going to put the words et al. You want the period after al, comma, and then 2015 in parentheses. And once again, these are just example templates that you're going to use. If you're writing something and there's no author, but it's an organization, like the Department of Treasury, things like that, you're going to just put right here, instead of the author's last name, you're going to put the organization. So right here, I'll open it up so you can see. This does not have a dedicated author on it. It just says WFLA 8 on your side staff. So since the organization is just WFLA 8, that is what we put in our in-text citation right here. If you interview someone, this is how you're going to do it in an in-text citation. You're going to do the person you interviewed, you're going to put their first initial and then their last name, comma, personal communication, comma, and then the date that that interview was conducted. So if you're talking to someone today and you're talking to John Smith, J. Smith, personal communication, and then today's date. Now, when I did say that every in-text citation has to end up on your reference list, these personal interviews are the exception to that rule. Personal interviews are not cited in your reference list. So if you're interviewing someone for a paper, you definitely want to make sure that you add this in-text citation, but you are not going to put that on your reference list. And if you have an unknown author or organization, you can use the first word or two in the title. So for this example, we'll pull it up again. The title of the news article was this, so we're just going to take the first two words, Florida driver. We'll put it here. You want it to be in quotation marks since it is a title of an article, and comma, and then the year of publication. If you're citing a book that does not have an author or a report that does not have an author, you're going to italicize. So if this was a book or a report, instead of being in quotation marks, this Florida driver would be italicized. If you're citing a title of a web page, an article, or a chapter in a book, then that's when you're going to use these quotation marks right here. If you're citing a source that does not have a publication date, you're going to use N.D. and that stands for no date. So for example, author last name Smith, comma, and then N.D. for no date. Now your reference list, which is the very last thing in your paper, once again, every in-text citation you use should have a corresponding entry on your reference list unless it is a personal interview that you conducted. Every reference needs a hanging indent, which we talked about at the very beginning. So here are the basic formats on how to cite your sources on a reference list. If you were doing a website, you're going to want to do the author last name, comma, first initial, period, and then a year in parentheses, period. The title of work should be italicized, and then you're going to have the site name and the URL. For all the examples that I put in this presentation, I would strongly encourage you to pay attention to which parts of the references are in italics and which parts are not, because you do not want to have a teacher take points off of you for not italicizing something in your reference list. A website with no author, you're going to have an italicized the title of the page, for example, like the Florida Man that we had. And then you're going to have the year, the month, and the date, period, the site name, and then you're going to have retrieved on the date that you retrieved it from your computer. And then you're also going to put the URL that you received it from. And this down here is an example of that. Now for scholarly journals, which is what most college students are going to be using, you're going to want to do the author last name, comma, first initial, period, the year in parentheses, period, your title of the article, period, and then in italics, the title of the periodical, comma, and the volume number, and then you're going to go back to regular font with the issue number in parentheses, and the page numbers, and the DOI number. And that down here you can see we have Hawkins, P. period, 2019, period. The title of the journal is Change in Libraries, Directions for the Future. Now in italics right here, we have the title of the periodical, which is also the title of this academic journal that this article came from, which is Public Library Quarterly. And it was volume number 38. The volume number right here has to be italicized. Then here, this is not italicized, and this is the issue number of the journal. And then this was from page 388 was the page the article was on that we're citing here. And this right here is the DOI number. Every academic journal is going to have a DOI. And let me show you a really easy way to find it real quick. So if you are going to school, you are probably going to be using a version of EBSCOhost. So right now, let's just pull up this scholarly journal. The author was Hawkins, and it was called Change in Libraries. So this is the article that we cited. If you click on it, EBSCOhost has this nice little cite tool, and if you click on it, it's going to give you the citation for APA formatting. So this gives you the DOI number right here, and this is very helpful. I will say, sometimes this tool is not always accurate. For example, I have seen sometimes where this part is not italicized. So you really just want to double check and see everything. It gives you all the correct information, but sometimes it can just have a format that is not actually APA style. So you really want to be careful on that. If you're citing a book, you're going to have the author last name, comma, the first initial, period, the year in parentheses, period, the title of the book, and since it's a book title, it should be italicized, period, and the publisher name. So for example, we have Mo Willems, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. So we have Willems, comma, M, period. It was published in 2013, period. And then the title of the book we have in italicized, and it was published by Hyperon Books. If you're citing an ebook, it's a little different because you're going to want to put this ebook edition right here at the bottom. So if we were taking the same book and changing it as an ebook, we are going to do the same thing, except after the italicized title, we're going to put these brackets and put ebook edition and the bracket, and then the Hyperon Books. Sometimes you're going to use a URL. Since this was something that, let's just say you had it on your Kindle, you're not going to have a URL for that. But if you were looking up an electronic book that was online, then that's where you could put the URL. For example, if you found a PDF copy of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, then you'd probably put a link at the end of this to the URL that you found that information from. These are a few helpful websites. Al Purdue has everything up to date on APA, and they're great. Most of the time when you Google how to do APA reference list for 3 or more authors, their website's going to be at the top of the list. Citation Machine and BibMe are both websites that can help you with citing. So let me show you them real quick. So citationmachine.net. When you go to their main site, you're going to click, I only want to create citations. And you're going to hit APA. And then this is where if you have a website, you can directly put in the hyperlink. Or if we have a book, let's just stick with Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. And then you're going to select what version you wanted. So we'll hit select. You'll click on final steps. Sometimes it'll make you add in additional information that it cannot find online. But when you hit create citation, this is what it shows. Now this is already right here. We're on APA 6th edition right here, if you can see. The 6th edition made you put in the city of the publishing office, but the 7th edition got rid of that. So for this specific version of the book, the correct citation for it is everything, but you could take out this London right here since we don't need that anymore. And then bibme.org is another tool you can use. And these are helpful just to give you an idea. However, you are still going to want to proofread your citations to make sure that they are correct. For bibme, you'd hit APA, and then you do the same thing here. So we have book, and we have don't let the pigeon drive the bus. So we have this, and so you're going to need to make sure that you're picking the correct version that you were using. So I'll select this one. Final step, it looks the exact same as Citation Machine. And then create citation. Once again though, most of these are still running on APA 6th edition, so you're going to make sure that you want to proofread everything. So now we are going to practice. So up here, let's go back to our general guidelines. We're going to open up Microsoft Word. Now, starting off, we want our paper double spaced. So right here on the spacing, we're going to go to double. We can also right click and hit paragraph and then change this line spacing to double and hit OK. We're also going to change our paper to Times New Roman, size 12 font. And if you go to layout, your margin should automatically be on 1 inches all around. Now for our title page, we are going to want the page number in this top right corner, and in order to do that, we're going to hit Insert, Page Number, Top of Page. We want it right here on the right. However, we want our header to have a different first page. We want the first page to be separate because this first page is going to say Running Head and then the title of your paper right here. But the second page and so forth is only going to have the title of your paper. So we're going to check mark this different first page. And sometimes when we do that, we have to add in the page number again because it takes it away. See, it took it away. So now we'll just go back to insert again. And now you're going to put your caps lock on and follow me on this. On the first page, only the first page, we're going to have the words Running Head in all capital letters with a colon. And then you're going to type in the title of your paper. So let's say that I'm writing a paper called Books Rock. And now we're just going to space it all the way over. Then we can backspace if we go too far. Now, according to this, if we space down, we will go center. We're just going to follow it. So we need our author's name, John Smith. Let's say I'm John Smith and I'm writing this paper. Institutional affiliation, let's say I'm at Miami University. Course number and name, we'll go English 111. Instructor name is, let's say, Dr. Jones. The due date for this paper, we'll put today. And you can either write it like this, or we can just write it out like March 9th. And you want it centered. So this is our title page. We have the page number in the right, we have the running head, and our title of the paper right here on the left. And then we have all of the necessary information for our cover page. Once again, your teacher might have different specifications for their cover page, so you really want to look at your syllabus and make sure that you're meeting all the requirements. Now, after this, if you hold down Control and hit Enter, it's going to start a new page. So we are going to double click in this heading. From every page now on, instead of the running head, we just want the title of our paper. So the title of our paper is Books Rock. That is the only information that we want on this page, along with the page number. And once again, that page number does not look like it's Times New Roman, so we'll change that back to Times New Roman. And then you are going to space it over. And then right here is where you're going to tab over and start writing your paper. Now notice the differences. Once again, this is very important. The first page, your title page, you're going to have number up here and then running head, colon, with your paper title. Every page after this is just your paper title. So you're not going to see the words running head anywhere else in this paper. Now let's throw in an in-text citation. So let's go Google News. We're just going to pull up the first thing we see. All right, this one, it looks like they have 3 authors. Now, all right, so with this we'll do paraphrasing. Princess Cruise Lines started to quarantine passengers. That is a paraphrase. Now, parentheses, we are going to do the first author's last name, and then since there are 3 or more authors, we're going to do et al. Period, comma, and then the year of publication. It looks like this is published today. So 2020. Now, if we were going to directly quote this, we are going to do our quotation marks, copy and paste. We're going to add a comma. We would put Fuller et al. 2020, and then we would go paragraph 2. And that's how we would do it. Now let's do an article with just one author. Okay, now this is 2 authors. So if we were citing this one, we would say the stock market has been declining as of late. And then in parentheses, we would put the last name of the author here and this author as well, comma, and then it looks like it was published 2020. So now that we have added 2 references for our in-text citation, we are going to go to the 3rd page and start our reference list. So you want references right there in the middle. Now the first reference we did was the Fuller article, and that was over here. So we have Fuller, comma, T, period, and then since there's more than one, we're going to add a comma after that initial, Elegant, comma, J, and Gross, comma, J. Parentheses, 2020 is the year of publication. Now if we look back here at our reference list, we want the title of our article to be italicized. So the title of this article is this. We are going to hit our italicize button here, and we're going to type in the article title. And then that's the only part that gets italicized, so we're going to unclick that. And then what is after that is the website name. The website is New York Times, period. And then the last part of it is going to be the retrieval date. So we are going to say retrieved March 9th, 2020 from, and then we are going to go over here, copy, and we are going to paste that link. And once again, make sure everything is in Times New Roman. Now to get that hanging indent, you're going to click here on your second line. And if you tab over, it's going to move everything over. So we're going to undo that. What you want to do with the second line, you're going to hit enter and hit tab. And then this third line, you're going to hit tab. And this creates your hanging indent right here. Now let's go cite this second news article that we had. And since the last name begins with a C, it's going to come before F. So we will start on this line. Kelly and Mike, M, period. Actually, since there's only two, we don't need a comma there. And the second author published 2020. And then we are going to italicize here and do the article title. And then end that italics. And the site name is CNBC. And then we're going to do retrieved today, March 9th, 2020. From, and then we are going to copy and paste. Once again, Times New Roman, 12-point font. Now to get the hanging indent, you're going to hit enter, tab, and then the third line tab, and that types the rest of it over. And that is going to be how you're going to create your reference list. You're really going to have to pay very close attention to what information is italicized in your reference and what isn't. So you just want to double check everything. Once again though, very simple formats. You simply just follow the template that I laid out in this PowerPoint and you fill in the blanks. And if you have any questions, I'd highly recommend going to Al Purdue and looking up the information there on their website. It's very helpful. But once you have this template started, you can basically just edit it anytime you want. All you really have to do, if we were starting fresh with this, for example, we could get rid of this. We would change this paper title, and then we would change the paper title behind the running head here, and then you could add in the correct course with the correct teacher and date, and then start. So once you have this set up, your paper is going to go a lot faster. Setting it up can take a lot of time if you're not used to it, so having just a blank template that you can just fill in the blanks for can be very helpful. But any other information you need to know, you can Google. I would highly recommend Al Purdue once again. If there is anything that you run across that we did not go over today, you can always Google and see what other people are doing who've run into a similar situation. For example, if you wanted to cite a YouTube video, you could probably Google cite YouTube video APA format and see what comes up. But as for us today, this is our general overview of APA, and I hope it helps you out.